Hi everyone, I'm Twilight. I decided to do a project breakdown video of a recent cover song I did. Today I'm going to go over the cover I made of We Don't Exist by Venturing, which is a side project of Jane Remover. This song is from the first Venturing album, Ghost Holding, which, as of May 2025, is my Album of the Year 2025 pick. It contains some of my favorite kinds of soundscapes and vibes I've dreamed to capture in my future originals. I've been a fan of Jane Remover and her music for a while now, since her second album, Census Designated. Previously, me and my friend Disfing remade one of Jane's main Alias singles, Flash in the Pan. But this time, I'm going to jump in solo for what is one of my favorite songs from Jane right now. It's a simple project, but I will go in as in-depth as my voice can allow. This entire project was made in little under 24 hours, with about 6 hours total of the project itself being open ever. It's one of the first things I've done musically since I released my first album, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out. With that being said, I'm going to go over how I did my guitar tones, how I made the drums, how I do my vocals, and other little stuff about the process. Hope you enjoy, whether you're a musician or not, and let's get into this. First up, the guitars. First thing I sometimes do is take my straight clean guitar tone and immediately link it to another mixer track, then assign a send from that main guitar track to the other mixer track. I do this before I put on any effects to keep the tone clean, leaving me to have full control on its own sound while keeping the main track clean and its own thing. The main guitar track has somewhat of a basic EQ that looks like this, emphasizing its sub-frequencies since I don't want to draw on a fake bass guitar. I then boosted the volume a tad, then fed it through the infamous sound goodizer. Next, I add a very short and somewhat separated reverb to give it a little wideness, and ending the chain with a limiter with interesting decisions on it. Now the second guitar track's volume is being automated throughout the entire song to my liking. But before that though, I added a destructor with these specific settings, followed by one hell of an EQ, slight reverb, and a limiter. For a third guitar track to stack on top of the others in each chorus, I took the recorded guitar clip here, then made a unique audio clip to separate it. I applied Stretch Pro and turned it up an octave for a higher pitched guitar tone to layer with. For the effects, I used a destructor. I did this EQ, slightly more reverb than the last one, a short stereo delay that I have set up here, and then ending it all off with a limiter. Always the limiter. On the second and final chorus, I did essentially the same thing, except no pitching with Stretch Pro on, instead leaving it be, then just added a bunch of distortion. I used a patcher preset my friend Disfing made that serves really well as a neat amp sim. I just really like how it sounds with my guitar. Then I added an EQ with a high pass filter and a bell lowering some undesired frequencies, along with a very short but wide stereo delay. Add long reverb, more specific EQing, and finally, a limiter. I then made another guitar recording that can add more depth and layers into these guitars. With this recording, I added a destructor with these settings, a high and low pass EQ, and ending the chain with a reverb, giving it this distant vibe. Made one last guitar recording with little additional melodies to continue layering it up like it's winter. Made a big volume boost since the dry recording is mostly quiet. Short but separated reverb, sound goodizer of course, EQ playing with the high and low pass, and a limiter. For the first chorus, this is the same mixer track for an improv solo I did. However, on the second chorus, it's a new mixer track with Disfing's distortion, a fun EQ, and even more reverb and delay. I put the outro guitar in a new mixer track that's the same as the main guitar track, but changing the EQ to make it muffled and isolate those lower frequencies for a certain atmosphere. A lot, if not all, of the instrumental is just guitars and layering them together. I used a heavily modified Squier Affinity Stratocaster. A couple of years ago, my best friend Shredtune gave me a Reverb.com listing for a guitar since I had been without one for a long time. Now, I could just rave on and on about the guitar and the history that I have with it, but that is for another time when I have time to explain it. Now, we move on to the drums of the cover song. First thing you'll notice is that I have an EQ automation up there, but it's also made entirely of samples I found off Splice. This EQ automation is set to move a low pass band slightly to give it less muted high end during big parts of the song. Then later I add a crash. The new snare and open hi-hat on chorus 2. As far as individual drum processing goes, I added a transient shaper on the kick to add more kick. I have nothing on the snare here. On the hi-hats I put an EQ that lowers the high ends, and then there is no processing on the crash. What I always do to my drums is add a glue compressor to really bring these drums together. Then I have an EQ boosting the low end and have that high pass band automated as seen before. This is what it is altogether. Yeah, that's pretty much the drums. That's it. Now the vocals. Oh god.
You say that's concerning. Nobody knows. I wouldn't tell if you told me. If
Okay, that doesn't sound too horrifying. Here's my effects chain. First, I added a compressor on the vocals to make them consistent and loud. Then there's a patcher instance pitching the vocals up 50 cents, meld the autotune plugin, then pitch back down 50 cents. Bit of a hassle, but I don't care. After that, I added slight reverb so it's not completely mono, and did some EQing using ProQ while using it as a de-esser.
Nobody knows.
After all that craziness, I added a second reverb, instead with a very long decay, and its wet slider automated in certain parts of the song for more atmosphere stuff. Then the chain mainly ends with a good old limiter. However, there's one more part that involves the lead vocals. I added a peak controller with these specific parameters to the end of the entire chain.
Mystery words I hear in my sleep.
I then routed the lead vocals and other things to a new mixer track to make it a somewhat simple delay bus. The effects are delay, of course, a simple EQ, and a fruity balance which the volume is automated with the peak controller. With this way, I can keep the rest of the vocals hearable while not taking away delay in certain moments. It also just sounds really cool this way.
If I'm a psychopath, then who are you for knowing that? It's long.
I added a second layer to the vocals by just re-recording the lines of the first, and then applying mostly the same processing, but with different edits.
The cold will get you, at least the clothes I have. But they always say your name to me.
It has a simpler effects chain than the first, but it's basically comprised of the same thing except the chorus now. To continue layering it up, I sung the same lines again but on a lower tone of voice. This has mostly different processing than the rest. Compressor as the last two times, and then oh, this is empty. Okay, here's the proper EQ I used. After that, reverb, more slight EQing, then a limiter.
But they always say your name to me.
And here's all of it all together.
But they always say your name to me. Even when you can't, don't be mad at me.
There's the reverb automation I mentioned before. Pretty cool. Here's some more examples of layering in vocals.
She's missing half the band, but we still go to see her. And I lied and said I liked it like that only 'cause I got in for free. So you tell me you're not stupid, then why the hell did you stay with me? You were right. I'm the type to rewrite history.
I really love how I did that. Anyway, next part.
Even when you can't, don't be mad at me.
Next up is the blink and you'll miss it and dreamlike precision lines. These two lines are probably my favorite lines in the entire song, I think. It just vibes really well with the instrumental with its delay and wideness.
Dream like precision.
These lines are in its own mixer track, starting with compression, some reverb, and of course the delay with high delay time and moderate feedback level. I then use the kilohertz Haas to make it really wide to my liking, boosted the volume, then EQ'd along with a lot of de-essing, and finally a limiter. And here's what it all sounds like together with a guitar layer.
Even when you can't, don't be mad at me. Even when you can't, don't be mad at me. Even when you can't, don't be mad at me. Even when you can't, don't be mad at me. Dream like precision, don't be sad at me. Even when you can't, don't be mad at me. Dream like precision.
For the first half of the outro vocals, I basically just use the same processing as the main lead vocals, but with these EQs.
Feel the fire. I wanna spend my money on something I like.
Last note for the vocals is that I have a volume automation on the delay bus, so I can control how prominent I want the delay to be throughout the song. And that's pretty much it for the vocals. Now we move on to the sample section. Doesn't have much, so this will be quick. First, one of the static noises you hear throughout the entire songs was accidentally recorded on my guitar. Not sure how, I just hit record and it just made some artifacts and static sounds that I liked, so I sampled it like so. The other static sound you hear is just a 3x oscillator set for white noise. Then I ran it through one of my favorite plugins, Codec, an audio degradation plugin. I've done this trick in music before, most notably in my originals Famine and Disillusion. I then EQ'd the processed white noise like this. That cool but haunting drone noise in the intro of the song is just two 3x oscillators. One stays constant and the other slides around. Both are just sine waves. Doing it like this makes it sound like a scuffed siren, or maybe a haunting emergency alert tone. Either way, it adds plenty of atmosphere to the intro. I automated the volume to my liking, then added mostly mono reverb, so my ears don't split apart. And end it with limiter. This reverse vocal sample in the intro. I recorded a clip from the vocals with reverb, reversed it, automated the pitch, then added more reverb. This trick always helps me bring in the vocals, at least in this scenario. Lastly, I want to go over some mixing and mastering addendums I have here. When I start my projects, I have set specific mixer tracks acting as buses for instruments, vocals, drums, etc. That way I can do final bits of effects trickery and mixing on everything at once individually. Usually for me, it's just an EQ to clean it up, but sometimes there's more. On the vocals bus, I have a Pro Q instance to do some certain bits of cleanup, as well as more overall de-essing. On the guitar bus, I have a Reverb's wet slider automated, which is mainly used for the outro. I also added a cleanup EQ as well. For the mastering, I keep it very simple. So lately what I've been doing is putting an EQ first, doing some very slight cleanup in some frequencies, and then putting a high pass on the sides so certain lower frequencies are more mono. Sometimes I don't do this though, it really just depends. After that, the chain ends with a clipper. I've been using Free Clip by Ven Audio for years now, and usually use these settings. But sometimes I push the input gain up a bit to make the whole track louder going in, but still letting it get clipped at 0 decibels, of course. For a very long time, I struggled to figure out how to master my own tracks. I could never get that final sound I wanted in a lot of music previously, thinking I needed to have a sophisticated master to perfect it. After years of frustration, I learned from friends that if the mix is good enough on its own, it doesn't really need too much, if anything, on the master. So I do what I do now. I learned how to be very particular with mixing everything in my music as I create. And because of that, I don't need much on the final master. It'll sound as I intend every single time. Can't you tell I'm a perfectionist? Well, now that everything's explained, let's take a full listen to the song.
Mystery words I hear in my sleep. Nobody knows. I wouldn't tell if you told me. I don't know my name. You say that's concerning. Nobody knows. I wouldn't tell if you told me. If I'm a psychopath, then who are you for knowing that?
I had a very fun time creating this little cover song. Since releasing my first album, I'm having to deal with a burnout, writer's block, and a little crisis on top of it, worrying, oh, where am I gonna take my sound next? I want to keep it fresh, blah blah blah, panicking about my musical identity and such. Working on covers and remixes on the side definitely helps me try out new things. And I'm confident to say that I may take this kind of sound in the future. We'll see what I come up with sooner or later. Apologies for how I've edited and voiced this all over, as well as how I have presented this project breakdown. This is my first proper self-edited video I've made after 7 years, and my first ever breakdown of a project on video. If y'all like this, I may do more in the future if time allows. You can check me out on my website or other social platforms. I recently released my first ever album that I'm pretty proud of. If you can, go check it out. You can find it wherever you find your music at. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you want, and take care of yourselves.